This is a very tricky but important statutory interpretation case heard by the Privy Council on appeal from the High Court. Mr. Lucas had suffered a heart attack in February 1965 and he was unable to work again. He suffered a further heart attack on the 7th of July 1965 and he died. His heart condition was accepted as being a consequence of his employment. There was no doubt that his widow and children would be entitled to workers' compensation after his death. What made this complicated, though, was that there were changes to the workers' compensation legislation, which would have substantially increased the payments to his family. Those amendments occurred on the 1st of July 1965, so after his initial heart attack, but before his death. The amendments were drafted in a clumsy way, referring to the employer's liability. But when did that liability accrue? Was the employer liable from the moment the injury was caused, if it turned out that the injury caused death? Or was the employer liable only from the moment of the death? What made it all the more complicated was that there was a long history of workers' compensation judgments, but it wasn't clear how those affected the new legislation. On this point, their lordships expressed an important view. Lord Upjohn for the Privy Council said, "It is quite clear that judicial statements as to the construction and intention of an act must never be allowed to supplant or supersede its proper construction, and the courts must beware of falling into the error of treating the law to be that laid down by the judge in construing the act rather than found in the words of the act itself. No doubt a decision on particular words binds inferior courts on the construction of those words on similar facts, but beyond that, the observations of judges on the construction of statutes may be of the greatest help and guidance, but are entitled to no more than respect, and cannot absolve the court from its duty of exercising an independent judgment." In other words, while interpreting statute, one must always start with the statute itself and the words of the statute, rather than relying immediately upon the decisions given by judges in earlier cases, no matter how authoritative. In this case, that meant the liability occurred at the moment of death, and the worker's family received the higher amount.